It's time for a new edition of Car and Truck Talk USA with Rich Baxter and Rick Nuzzolo. This episode, we're talking about how to buy that used car, what's best for you in the market, and a whole lot more on our return edition of Car and Truck Talk USA.
Recorded live.
And welcome back to the new edition of Car and Truck Talk USA for May 18th, 2013. My name is Rich Baxter, and I'm joined once again from my good friend from across southern New Jersey here, and the original host of Car and Truck Talk USA, Mr. RJN Motorsports himself.
And that would be me, Rick Nuzzolo. How are you, bud?
Rick Nuzzolo, how you doing? Nice to talk to you. God, we were just talking about this before we started this show here tonight, and it's been a few years since we've done this show.
It's been 5 years almost to the date. I remember it was 5 years ago, Memorial Day weekend, and we're just a week shy of Memorial Day weekend here in 2013.
Yes, indeed. Well, welcome back to the show. God, it's been so long since I've done a show on this Car and Truck Talk USA. The last show I did was probably coming up on 2 years ago, and God, 5 years went by so fast. It's almost incredible how fast 5 years has gone by since we've done our last show, which, as you pointed out, was probably almost to the day 5 years ago.
Yeah, it's amazing how time flies. You know, life gets involved, and we almost get caught up in our routines, get up and go to work and take care of the family, and it just goes by so quickly. It's just repetitious. Things just go by like just a snap of a finger. I can't get over it either. It seemed like yesterday we were doing.
Yes, indeed. I want to say hello to our listeners and hope a lot of the folks are still listening out there to all of the podcasts. Occasionally I'll get emails asking us to start the show again, and they want more episodes, and now you've got it. So we're going to be joining you for a number of shows. And Rick, I was just thinking today while I was driving to work that it's a great time for cars in the springtime and when summer's about to come upon us. It's just a time for cars, really.
Absolutely. It's just a time everybody brings out their projects or whatever they were building over the winter time. Ocean City, Maryland right now has one of the biggest car cruisers, car shows in the East Coast going on this weekend. I have a friend down there that he's known as the Power of Clint. He's very well known in the automotive industry, and that's his motto. And he's down there. He gives some reports and sends a lot of photos. It's amazing what's going on down there. Unfortunately, today was a little bit of a rain out, but they still had the cars there that people spend money on the hotels and stuff. So every hotel parking lot's like a new car show. So it's still well alive, and as far as the hobby is concerned, the economy's kept people back a little bit, but you know, to see that going on in the beginning of the year here with cruises and the car shows, racing season well on their way now with NASCAR and NHRA, you know, it's good to see that people are still going into the hobby and having fun in the lull of the economy.
Yes, it is. And as we were talking about 5 years ago, the gas prices were just starting to rise. They're still up. And, God, we're just about used to expensive gas now. So that sort of is playing into the mix as well as new car prices, the uncertainty of the economy, as you said. And a lot of people don't want to ink their names to any long-term deals with buying new cars, so they're keeping their old roadsters on the road and have to maintain them and stuff. And, you know, it just feeds into the hobby as cars stay on the road longer and people have to maintain them better, hopefully. And, you know, that feeds the industry, so to speak.
Absolutely, and a lot more do-it-yourselfers are appearing now, which is kind of good for our industry, and more people, you know, especially for our podcast here, and also with trying to help people to do their own cars and to diagnose themselves. That's the hardest part that most people have is diagnosis. Anybody can turn a wrench and take a part off and put it back on, but knowing what to take off and put on, excuse me, is the hardest part, and that's where, you know, we come in, and that's where we extend ourselves to help people. and teach them, look, it's like anything else. Once you know how to do it, it's really not that difficult. And to learn your own car, if you had it for 10 years, 15 years, it starts to become very knowledgeable. It becomes like a back of your hand. You become very knowledgeable in what you're doing. You realize, hey, wait a minute, I know this car now inside and out. I know what's what. I know what size tool I need, and it becomes almost second nature, which is the beauty of it. And that's the best thing of everybody doing their own thing, is they can learn their own vehicles, and they know what they have now. They don't have to sit there and wonder, and then they can start diagnosing things. With every tick and every tap and every little vibration, they can really figure it out once they learn theory and learn how to really figure out what causes problems that they have.
Yes, indeed. Well, Rick, upon us tonight, I know we had some topics that we have in the bullpen to discuss on this new edition of Car and Truck Talk USA. Firstly, I'd like to shout out to Eric the Car Guy. I know Eric's still very much into the business. He's very much into making his videos and YouTube videos on all kinds of Hondas and different vehicles. So I want to say hello to him and thank him for a couple episodes that he put together for the podcast here, probably a dozen or so, and wish him continued success in that. And he's really pretty entertaining on YouTube. Rick, I don't know if you've got a chance to view some of his videos, but he's real down home, and that's what we're all about. We're not huffy and stuffy kind of guys here on Car and Truck Talk USA. We're sort of down to earth, and that's what we need to be.
Exactly. We need to relate to everybody else. We're no better than anyone else. We're just regular Joes, so to speak. Just to relate to everybody the way we do, that's what it's all about. We're not going to, tell anybody, hey, this is it or nothing. We work with people, and that's the whole key of what we do. We try to walk people through step by step to help them, because we've been there before. We didn't always know what we know. We learned over time.
Exactly, and that's the beauty of cars and parts and the whole car business. You're constantly learning. You're constantly going to work day after day. You get exposed to new things, new ways of selling different parts and new parts themselves just on the cars. And every time they come out, a few years ago, Rick, I don't even think they had the tire pressure monitors as much as they do now, but now they're all pretty well standard on all the new cars. And there you go. Boom, there's another part that fails in the field and, that people need help with, and especially those. It seems like they're one of the newer parts that are electronic that are constantly going bad on a car.
Absolutely. It's a good thing to have. It's a good feature to have. And like you said, they're pretty much standard on every new car now. And it's nice that you don't really have to constantly check your tire pressure every time you go and get a fill up at the gas station, because that was a common practice back in the day. You would fill up your gas and go check your tires and make sure the tire pressures were good, so you get the best gas mileage and also the best tire wear. But nowadays, you have the tire monitoring pressure sensors, and they're going to pretty much do it for you. And if one of the tires goes either too high or too low, you get that little light on the dash. And if they look good or they test good, then you know that, hey, that sensor is bad. And we see a lot of them, too, in the industry now. It's pretty bad. I mean, I don't like it personally. To me, it's a lazy man's way of filling up a tire, but it's a good safety feature because a lot of accidents do happen because of underinflated tires. But to get back to my point was, it seems like they're failing more than they're working. It seems that way. And it's like they need to come out with a little better design on these tire monitoring pressure systems.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things that happens sort of when they try to go more high-tech on certain areas of a car, just like your tires, for example, and you get the light on the dash, and it's annoying, and you don't want to deal with it, but, and plus, it's expensive. I mean, if you're going to go to a qualified tire shop and get it repaired and all, you'll find out that some of the cars are more expensive than others. But like you said, Rick, years ago, it was, you fill up your car with gas, you checked your oil yourself, basically. Sometimes the gas jockey would ask you if you live in a state that still has gas pumpers, which I think New Jersey is one of only a few in the country that still have those. But they would offer to check your oil, and you would maybe even check your air pressure yourself. But nowadays that's all changed for a lot of people, and like you said, Rick, it's all automatic, sort of. But with the automaticness comes even more problems with malfunctioning monitor systems and just the valves themselves go bad quite a bit.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's an expensive repair a lot of times. The tire actually has to come off the rim for them to replace them, just like replacing an actual tire valve. Some repair kits are available, but 9 times out of 10, the inside of the tire has to be replaced. Excuse me. What also, speaking of, back in the day, again, a lot of people asking me today and, every day pretty much, with the economy the way it is, going back to that, not everybody wants to invest in a new car anymore. They want to pretty much get something that's got good aftermarket support that they can buy today, and then 20 years later, if they still want to have it, they want to be able to get stuff for it. And Rich, there's many cars out there that have that aftermarket support. And, you could go to different companies that offer every part for the vehicle, and that's the beauty of this industry as well. And, for example, if you wanted it, now we're going with a high performance or a muscle car type, you want to have an older Camaro, so you can still literally get every part for any Camaro just about any year from 1967 through pretty much currently, even though they had that run where they dropped it for a while, they're back out now. And they make every part for every Camaro. So if you really wanted to get a car like that, you don't have to go back to a dealer ever. You can pretty much order stuff right out of the catalog. Every nut and bolt, every part is available for a car like that. But not everybody wants a muscle car or sports car. So I'm getting a lot of people asking me, what's a good SUV that has great aftermarket support that I can buy just about every part for? That's, pretty much high mileage vehicle that I can put a lot of mileage on that's fairly cheap. And honestly, Rich, I have to say it's one of the vehicles that I drive, which is the Jeep Cherokee. There are so many out there. You can pick one up for pretty much anywhere from $800 that runs perfectly all the way up to $5,000-$6,000. They've had a run from the 80s up in 2001. I believe 1984 to 2001 was their run. So there are so many out there, and the only major change that they had in design was 97 to 01. But it's subtle changes. They're major, but they're subtle at the same time. They still call them the shoebox Cherokee. And those 4.0 engines, you can just put 400,000 miles on them, no issues at all. So that was one of the highly recommended SUVs out there. And if you look, a lot of people are building them now. They make lift kits for them, and you got a lot of the younger crowd putting lift kits on them and bigger tires for off-roading. They're also a fantastic off-road vehicle. What a great utility, SUV, total SUV, true SUV in that Jeep Cherokee. Really do anything with them, from a family wagon to a grocery getter to deep in the mud. There's so much out there for them. Just something like that would be an ideal investment for somebody if they wanted to get something, not have to replace their car every 5 years.
Yeah, there's a lot of fans of the Jeep out there. It's changed over the years. I'm not a real big fan of the square box style that they went to last couple years. It seems like when the Commander went square, some of the other ones, the Wrangler, went really square. More so than it always was. And it just sort of, Jeep went boxy on their designs in the last 3 to 4 years. But I think they're going to be changing again. In 2014, I saw a new Grand Cherokee coming out, and it's very futuristic looking rather. So, Jeep is constantly evolving and changing, and like you said, Rick, for a lot of people out there, cars that have parts readily available are the ones that you should actually be buying. Don't go out there and buy yourself a Peugeot because it looks good, or say a Volkswagen Jetta, because you're going to have problems when that thing breaks down. And whereas a Jeep or Chevrolet or even a Ford, for that matter, some of the newer Fords, there's plenty of parts available, and you're never going to be without on the road, for sure.
Exactly, and the total opposite end of that spectrum, Rich, is like, for example, like a 90 Chrysler New Yorker. I had a customer just the other day come in and looking for a part for it that it's no longer available. And she was saying, well, why? And to be blunt, and that's my clientele love really one of my main traits and what they love about me is that I'm going to be straightforward and tell them what it is. And I said that, well, the truth is the car is not a desirable car, meaning that it's not what people want. There's no demand for it. And there's not that many left on the road. And when people got rid of them, they didn't rebuild them or want to rebuild them. It's not something they wanted. And I told her straight out just like that. And I said, so there's not going to be a good following with aftermarket support. I said, because she didn't understand it. It's a 92. I'm like, yeah. And she's like, well, I know people have 80s Monte Carlos and they can get stuff for them. I'm like, yeah, because people build them. People build them in a hobby as far as racing and to restore them. I said, it's a desirable car. I said, but a 92 New Yorker is not something that's desirable that someone's going to keep. It's more like a Toyota Corolla where you drive it and throw it away, get a new one. It's not one you're going to keep, it's not like that. It's basically a disposable car, so to speak. And that's what I was trying to explain. She's a perfect example of, you want to get something old, you want to make sure it's got that aftermarket support, so you can put your money into it, but it's not going to cost you a lot because tons of stuff out there for them, and you keep it on the road 20, 30, 40, it doesn't matter.
Exactly. A lot of people, for most people, a car is just their mode of transportation, and they're not thinking down the road, hey, what if the fuel pump goes out or the alternator, something like that. And some of these cars have parts that are more expensive than others. So if you're in the market for a used car, that's good advice. Go for something like a Jeep or something that you're going to be able to fix, hopefully, if it breaks down without too many problems. Like you said, Rick, there's a few people with Toyotas, older Toyotas, with some common emission problems. They'll come in and be shocked that, hey, their fuel pump is going to cost them $300 or $250, and it's because of the rarity that you were speaking of. They only made a certain amount of them, and you happen to have one. So the more rare a car is, generally the more a part is going to be, or the harder it's going to be to get fixed.
Exactly. Good point. And that's the whole thing. You want to have your repairs done quickly and cost effectively. And if you have to wait 2 weeks to get a part, that's not quickly and probably not going to be cost effective. You probably have to pay shipping. Probably going to have to pay extra because it's hard to find. And some people like that rarity on cars, but to me, it's not something I want to be involved with as far as driving every day. If I want to drive it all the time, I don't want to have to wait to drive it. I don't want to wait for it. Turnaround time is big. This pollen is killing me. I'm constantly clearing my throat. I apologize. Pollen's been really bad down here.
Yeah, the pollen was just in the paper today. The pollen is, I think, one of the worst ever in New Jersey here, southern New Jersey area. And everybody that is affected by it is really showing the signs of it, myself included. But Rick, a few years ago when we did the show, Twitter was just in its infancy. There wasn't too many people that even know what Twitter was, but Car and Truck Talk is on Twitter. So if you want to follow us, go up to Twitter and search out Car and Truck Talk, and you can find us there. You can follow us, see what we're up to. Go to the website at carandtrucktalk.com and check us out there. We have some different posts and articles and things like that, and a lot of good companies following us at carandtrucktalk.com. I'm always appreciative of that. And, it's a big business out there, and we're covering cars and trucks. So follow us on Twitter. And, Rick, before we wrap this show up, we're just going to do a short show tonight, just to reintroduce ourselves to our old listeners and, of course, welcome in some new listeners. But tonight, Rick, we're going to dream a little because the lottery's up to $600 million in the U.S. here in Powerball, and everybody's dreaming. And tonight on the show, as we wrap up, we're going to leave you with some thoughts on what kind of car would you buy if you happen to hit the lottery, Rick?
That's a very good question. To be honest with you, the very first thing I would buy, and it might come as a shocker to most people that know me, but the very first thing I would buy would be a Ford F650, brand new, with the Cummins diesel and the Allison transmission, four-wheel drive, four-door. That's what I would probably get first, all in black.
Wow. Leather interior, probably. And
probably not leather, but you know what? At that point, who knows? Whatever the best one would be.
Right.
But that would probably be my first choice. It would be the brand new F650 with the Cummins diesel and the Allison transmission. Most guys out there that know trucks know that is the best combination because everybody knows the Cummins is probably the best, and the Allison's got the best trans, and Ford has pretty much always had the best looking truck. They just made some pretty poor design changes and pretty stupid blueprints on their engines in the last few years. They really lost a lot of credibility with people who know cars, so to speak. Ford's always been a black eye in the performance market other than a Mustang, but, GM guys know what I'm talking about. But in the diesel truck world, you look at the Cummins, that's what's hot to trot. And that's what people are building, and they know the Allison's a pretty good trans that GM has exclusiveness to, and on their lower-end trucks, their 2500s and a 3500. Ford's always had that look, so they put all three into that F650, which is very unreachable financially, but that would be my choice. What about you, Rich?
Well, one of the first things I'd do, my dad has always been a fan of Cadillacs, so one of the first few cars that I would purchase would probably be a new Cadillac for my father. And
fish!
Yeah, exactly. We'd go see an old friend, probably outside of Atlantic City, and for all of you Corvette fans, you'll probably know a big retailer right outside of Atlantic City and within the city limits, actually.
It's Charles Corvette. You come and see me, and I'll take care of you. It's my name, Charles Kerbeck. I have commercials on South Jersey all the time.
That's him. So that's probably where I would head first and pick up Pop a new Caddy. But, you know, Rick, I haven't really looked at the Cadillac line all that closely over the last couple years, actually, and I'm right on the website right now while we're taping the show, and God, all the vehicles have really, really changed in the Cadillac line. Looks like the XTS sedan is pretty nice. Very cool what Cadillac has become.
That's very unselfish of you, Rich, to think of your dad first before yourself. That's pretty good. I didn't see that one coming, actually. That's almost like a holiday curveball you threw at me there. But like any team playing the Phillies, it got knocked out of the park. But anyhow.
Yes. So after I get Dad a Cadillac, of course, my wife would come next, or come first, actually, and she would have to pick what she wanted, and I'm not quite sure what that would be, but somewhere down the line, I would be able to go get one, and I've always wanted a BMW.
Oh, okay, nice.
So I kind of like the longer cars of a few years ago, maybe the 7 Series, but I'm I'm on the BMW site now and taking a look at. I
assume you'd have to go with an all-wheel drive Model EXI.
Yeah, I would have to consider that. I've driven in one of the 7 Series just one time, and it had such a quiet ride. You could, your conversation was so easily heard because the noise of the road was just secondary.
Wow.
And
not like the hum of the tires that I drive in my vehicles, huh?
Exactly. It was almost like riding in a jet,
wow.
But you were, in a car and, just riding down the road. I just like that long wheelbase of like a 7 Series, and that's probably what I would go with. I don't think I would go off the deep end and get a Rolls Royce or anything like that, because then, you're really attracting attention to yourself on the road.
You're right about that one. You can't really park it anywhere. And
guys that drive real exotic cars these days, maybe if you're in L.A. or Southern California there, you could blend in well with the crowd. There's a lot of high-end cars out there. You could probably, get away with it out there, but mostly anywhere else, you're going to really attract some attention, and some of that you don't want to do, You don't want to
very good point.
You don't want to scream that you just won the lottery most of the time, There's a lot of people out there that probably wouldn't take too well to that, but I would have to pick the BMW.
Oh, not a bad choice. And you're pretty much staying humble with that, because like you said, that's a common vehicle you see in a mall parking lot. Unlike me, where I'm going for a huge monster that could definitely notice. Not that I'd want that. It's the vehicle I think of.
Well, hey, that's cool, and I'm sure whoever does eventually win the lottery is going to be treating themselves very well, and usually at the top of most people's list is a car or some mode of transportation. I know they have those nice cross-country type camper, almost like a tour bus style type of deal with, I think they run about $450,000 to $500,000, the real nice ones.
Yeah,
so
that motor coach, yeah.
That could be a nice thing to have to travel around and, see the country, go from state to state and see the land a little bit.
Yeah, that is a nice investment. They're beautiful, these. If you've ever seen them, half of them are better looking as homes. Yeah,
they are. They're like rolling mansions almost, some of these vehicles. And, it's that ingenuity again, that American spirit that keeps rebuilding itself. And just a few years ago, you had, not too palatial type campers, but nowadays you take a look, and depending on if you could afford it, you can really get a nice living on the road these days.
Absolutely, and a lot of people are actually retiring, getting rid of their homes, and just traveling the country for the remaining years. I know quite a few people that are doing that. They just get a P.O. box, and they just drive wherever they want to, and they go to different campsites, and in the winter they stay south of the, and you can't camp here legally all year long in New Jersey. You can't, there's the laws here, you can't be basically living in a campsite all year long and to do it. Some of it got grandfathered. Anybody knows that you have to be gone for like straight or something, weird thing, but I don't know if you want to live all year long in cold weather in one of those, but as far as the amenities, you probably could. They have everything you need.
Yeah, it's very possible. Well, if you have a question for us, email us at talk@carandtrucktalk.com. It'll go right to our studios. We can answer your questions. If you have a topic you'd like to hear us talk about on Car and Truck Talk USA, we'd love to do that. And Rick, Click and Clack are apparently off the air now, so maybe we'll get some airtime and get some new listeners, and it's great to be back, and welcome back, and we're really proud to have the show back with some new episodes.
Absolutely, and tonight, like you said, we're just a little introductory, get us back into the mode of doing the show, we always had a little humor in there every now and again, that's why I had to throw those little Kerbeck humor there. I know it's more of an inside joke, our listeners may not know what I meant by that, but always got to keep the humor going in the show, and as this time goes on, we can get that back because we're not always serious all the time, and kind of make the show fun by having a little bit of comic relief always in the middle of the show.
Exactly. Well, thank you for tuning in to this edition of Car and Truck Talk USA. And Rick, I think we're going to have a whole bunch to talk about on our next shows. We're going to have air conditioning season coming up. All kinds of new things to talk about. We have Pennsylvania out in Carlisle. They have big shows coming up in the summer months. The GM show there, the Ford show, and across the country, when spring happens in summer, it's car, motorcycle, and truck season. So there's going to be plenty to talk about on the show.
Absolutely, Rich, and it was a pleasure again, and thank you, and have a wonderful night, and we'll catch up soon on the show.
Yes, indeed, and thanks to the listeners out there, and we'll talk to you again on the next edition of Car and Truck Talk USA. And we'd love to have you as a sponsor of Car and Truck Talk USA. Send us an email to talk@carandtrucktalk.com.